Hi, welcome to Things About Strings. Today's lesson is going to be about the holding your violin and the foundation of holding your violin, how important that is. If you play the violin or the viola, you play a braccia instrument, which means of the arm. And the cello is a gamba instrument of the leg. So we are talking about a braccia instrument, but it's really important that you don't hold up your violin with your arm, because your arm is needed for fingering and getting all around the violin. And if you try holding it up with your arm, it's just going to be a constant battle with gravity. And believe me, I've seen this over the years and years with many violin players. So the key thing about your foundation, I like to start with your left hand on your right shoulder. And then you see this collarbone right here. I call this the violin shelf. When you're playing the violin, although it may look like heads are going straight this way, the violin is actually placed more towards the left shoulder, and the head is rotated to the left. And then rather than call this a chin rest, it might be better to call it a jaw rest, because the back side of your jaw right here is going to just sit on the chin rest. And if you look towards your left shoulder, simply drop the weight of your head. That in itself is enough to hold up the violin. Now in my case, you can see it's kind of slipping right now, which will happen to a lot of people because the beautiful violin varnish is very smooth, and so it often is much of our clothing. So I'd like to give you a solution for that. Start off with trying just a sponge, and there are all sorts of different sizes and shapes of sponges. You can find these pretty much anywhere in packaging or a place called House of Foam. I pick up remnants. But find a piece and put it onto your violin on the same side as your chin rest, because your shoulder and your chin will be on the same side. So you're not going to want to put it on the opposite side. You put the sponge on the same side as your chin rest, and then I've just attached two rubber bands together, and I'll slide that around the chin rest and then pull the rubber band over the sponge and onto the edge of the violin right here. And you can see now I've got my left hand on the right shoulder, and I'll put the violin onto my violin shelf and look over to the left, and look, it just stays by itself. I mean, I could just rotate around and the violin is just there by itself, almost like something that's growing out of my neck. And now my hands are free to bow and finger everywhere. If this is successfully achieved, all of violin playing will be much simpler. And believe me, if it's not, it won't. So let's get our violins on the shoulder and separate from our arms. Now, an alternate to sponge, that might not be enough for the size that's between your shoulder and your violin. So there is a variety of what they call shoulder rests available, and you'll find those at the music store. In this case, I'll show you how to put one on. This is called a kun, K-U-N, and you want to attach the feet onto one side. They call it the feet, and make sure that the larger size dip is attached on the same side as your chin rest, because your shoulder and your chin are on the same side as each other. So you'll add the larger size dip on the chin rest side, hold on to the feet of the shoulder rest, and then slide it onto the bouts of your violin. And you can see here that this little bump will fit right nicely onto the shoulder. And again, that's a beautiful way to hold the violin up with no arms. Yay! Next, let's talk about teaching somebody else and fitting a shoulder rest or sponge for your student. Hi Tim, you ready for violin lesson?
Hi, Mrs. Eleanor. I am.
Would you like to learn how to hold the bow or play the violin? Hold the violin first.
Hold the violin.
All right. So here we go. We're starting our foundation, how to hold the violin properly. So Timmy, can you put your left hand on your right shoulder? Other right shoulder. Okay, good. Now, I want you to look, not this way, but at your violin, and then lift up your head And I'm just going to place it right here on your shoulder and now drop your head. Beautiful. And that should be holding your violin. But see how it's kind of drooping a little bit? Boom. So I think in your case, what we'll do is add a sponge. Right here. That's the place where I put it on. Okay, now Timmy, left hand, right shoulder. You got it right. Good. And now lift your head and drop your head. And there we go. Beautiful. Can you turn? Nice. It stays all by itself. Excellent. Now, the real test is to see if I can't steal it. See? Yay! And I can tap my fingers all around here and here. And I can't take it. Yay! Ready to play?
Yes, I am.